Well, good morning and welcome again to one of my little musings, my somewhat random thoughts on photography in general and my own photography journey. Um, this morning I'd like to just share a few thoughts on opportunities that perhaps we didn't think were there in regards to making images. So over the past few weeks, we've actually had some pretty glorious conditions, especially for Northern Ireland, but pretty glorious conditions for eating ice cream, not for making images. Um, Bright sunshine, harsh shadows, certainly not the type of conditions that are seemingly conducive to creating images. Still, over the last couple of days, I have taught myself a valuable lesson in um, photography or in my photography journey, and hopefully you'll pick up a few tips from this as well. So actually, on Monday morning, it actually started out pretty dank, pretty Northern Irish, really. Light drizzle, flat washed out clouds. I don't mind shooting in the rain. It's what umbrellas are for. But there really just wasn't seemingly any light in the sky at all. Um, as it approached lunchtime, things started to improve until by early afternoon, the sun was shining, the ice creams were out again, and so was the Irish tans. And as I looked out the window, I again didn't hold out much hope, even though the conditions had improved dramatically from a weather perspective. Um, but it just didn't really hold out much hope. However, for one reason or another, over the past week, I haven't really got out with the camera a lot, and I had an itch to scratch. So, time to get my stuff together and get out the door. As I was out driving, I spotted high up in the sky some cirrus clouds, and if you're anything like me, when you see cirrus clouds, you get all like, I love photographing cirrus clouds in an image. I think it works really well, especially with a wide angle. Um, and so I thought to myself, I'll go to a location that also combines another one of my favorite kind of environmental subjects on conditions on days like today, sunny days, and that's coastal reeds. Ooh, coastal reeds. Just me? Okay, then moving on. Armed with the Fuji X-E2, combined with the 10 to 24mm, and the Fuji X-T1, combined with the 18 to 135, I headed to a location that I'd visited before, and I'd kind of thought about, some of the compositions before as well. So I racked off a couple of standard shots, ISO 200, f11, 1/600th of a second. And there really just wasn't anything floating my boat at all. And I was looking at the scene, and the scene was kind of pulling me, but the image itself was doing nothing. Something was missing. Still with the camera set to shoot in RAW, I overlaid a black and white plus R film simulation. And I really find I use the black and white plus R film simulation the most when I'm shooting in black and white or looking to think black and white. I like the punchiness that it brings to the overall scene. So of course the camera is still capturing in RAW, but it's just giving me a black and white simulation to sort of let me think more in black and white. Another standard shot, f11, 1/500th of a second, ISO 200. Things had started to improve. I then took a step back from the camera, and I took a step back for a good few minutes. And this allowed me to survey the scene and really ask myself what in the scene was drawing me towards it. Something had made me stop at that particular point. And rather than just rush in and sort of fire off a number of shots, I was now asking myself what in this scene is actually sort of drawing me towards it. Now, there was a fresh breeze blowing, as quite often is the case here in the North Coast, and that was creating a reasonable high volume of sort of waves coming in and breaking on the coastline, as well as the reeds in front of me, just sort of blowing, not really crazily blowing, but just gently sort of swaying in the wind, movement in the wind. And this is what I felt was really helping to hold the image together, along with, of course, the cirrus clouds as well. So, time to create some movement in the image, and of course, we're talking here about filters. So, I have a couple of filters, and the first one that I used on that particular day, the Formatt Hitech, the Formatt Hitech 10 stop. This is the Firecrest IRND ND3 10 stop filter. And this is one of my go-to filters when it comes to creating interest in a coastal scene, especially during the day when I perhaps want to increase the shutter speed to greater than a couple of seconds, but I don't want to have it, in the sort of area of 40, 50 seconds or greater. I also added, again from Formatt Hitech, a polarizer, and this allows me, as I'm sure you're aware, to add a little bit more punch into the sky. And thinking that I was going to be thinking in black and white, this was going to be my friend. Not necessarily turn to full polarization. That perhaps was going to create maybe too much of a darkness in the sky. And I also was very aware that even though I was now shooting on the 18-135 mm lens, I was shooting at the wider side of that, and of course polarizers on a wider angle lens can create some mismatch in the polarization across the full scene. So to help combat that a little bit, I was making sure that I was including plenty of clouds in the actual skyline as well. There were areas of the sky that were completely devoid of clouds, and I think that would have created too much of a color imbalance between polarized and non-polarized areas. So polarizer on the front and a 10 stop filter. Now this is where the fun really starts, because of course with your ND, your 10 stop filter in place, you can start to play around a little bit with the overall exposure times by modifying other areas of the exposure triangle, be that increasing your ISO a little bit, or increasing, decreasing your aperture. So this allowed me to play with exposure times of between about 8 seconds and about 20 seconds. Now when I peered through the viewfinder, I quite liked what I saw. Certainly a whole lot better than the standard shot that I'd taken when I'd first arrived. The following day, myself and my wife took a drive out to a few of our favourite wildlife spotting areas. This time the weather was a little more overcast, and it would have seemed upon first look devoid of any real interesting light. It's at times like this that I bring out the big gun. And by big gun, I mean the Formatt Hitech 16 stop filter. Dead as night. Even during daylight, bright daylight, one can still achieve pretty long exposure times, sometimes rendering an otherwise flat and boring scene with a layer of calmness and I find anyway, a layer of beauty as well. And so was the case in the two locations that I shot with the 16 stop. Again, I was shooting with a black and white film simulation, still shooting in RAW, just to let me see. I was again thinking in black and white, just to let me sort of have an idea of how the image was going to come out. Now I ended up taking only a handful of images, probably only about 5 images in total across the 3 locations that we had visited. Each sort of 3-4 minutes, the longest being sort of 6-7 minutes. And again, as I peered through the viewfinder, certainly held down a lot more interest than my own eye was seeing. So later that evening, and between the football matches, go on Northern Ireland! It's the European Championships at the moment. So between the sort of tea time and the evening kickoff, I'd noticed that the waves outside the flat where we live had actually sort of whipped up a little bit more energy. Over the last couple of weeks, it's been very flat. Lots of surfers just kind of wandering around, wondering what to do, what to do with themselves. So quickly grabbed my XT1 with the 18-135, my Formatt Hitech filters, and headed out literally just below the flat. And this time I was playing with a 4-stop filter and also the 10-stop. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, light had dropped, so even a 4-stop filter was giving me maybe a little bit longer exposure than that I was looking for. So again, shooting between 3 and 10 seconds this time. I didn't want to completely turn the sea to mist. For me, an image, it's very important that an image reflects the mood and the feeling of the place. And of course, the real key area from this scene was the energy in the waves. All of the images were rather quickly processed in Google FX Silver FX Pro, which is free. The whole Google Nix suite is now free. Certainly go pick that up. Just do a search for Google Nix and grab the whole collection. But very quickly processed in black and white. And I have to say I'm quite pleased with the results. Certainly, have created something that I didn't, looking out and looking through a standard shot, was what I thought was possible. What started with seemingly boring and flat conditions turned out to be, sorry, just let me grab this a little bit. What started out in boring and flat conditions, with the addition of filters, really helped to bring out something that I feel has got some mood and an interesting image. So the lessons, well, I guess there's two here. Firstly, it's very important that we simply don't shoot when the book tells us to shoot, dawn and dusk, the golden hours. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get some phenomenal light at those times of day, but if we are only shooting at dawn and dusk, then I think we're unfairly limiting ourselves. And plus, if you are out with a camera, even if the conditions aren't ideal, you're out with a camera, you're in the field, even if you come back with some field notes for a future visit to a particular location. Secondly, with the filters, filters are a landscape photographer's best friend. And yes, of course, you've got your grads to help kind of balance exposure, but your ND filters now, of course, some would say can be maybe a bit of a cliche shot. It's a lot of people now will do a lot of long exposure stuff, but it certainly can help create some interest in an image that, despite how wonderful the human eye is, it cannot see in 10, 15, 20, 30, 1 minute, 2 minute slots. So the ND filters really, especially that 16 stop, it really does produce some images and scenes that the human eye just could not really sort of replicate. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this latest musing. Sorry, I got a bit distracted there the last few minutes. There was a number of Twitter messages coming through, direct messages from various people asking me about the Fuji X-T1 of all things. I'll throw up some images after I've stopped rambling. Hope you enjoy those. And of course, as always, thanks a lot for taking the time to watch this latest musing. Please do like, subscribe, and of course leave a comment below if you have any questions. Until next time, however, hope you guys all have a great day. Bye-bye.